Alright guys, I wanted to talk a little bit about how to get a design on a cylinder because I've asked you to make a candle holder. And a candle holder should be probably a cylinder, okay, in its form. So what I've done is I've used my hand sanitizer bottle, I've wrapped it in paper, and then of course I went through the steps from the previous video to construct a cylinder and made sure that it's nice and even, okay. I did do some fixing up on it where I sprayed it and smoothed it out, and I also made sure there's actually a seam here, I can feel it, but I can't see it, so it needs to look like it's very uniform. And this is just kind of a trick about how to get some negative spaces. So understand that if you have too many negative spaces and something falls through, of course you're going to have to start the whole thing all over again. So you want to think out your design before you start. So what I did was I printed it on a piece of paper, and I'm using this line right here, this black line, as a way to line up to the top. So this black line is just helping me keep it in line, and I won't do these half pieces. I'll probably replace this paper and go from the whole section to the next one. But I'll use something that I know is going to make an indentation. So in this case, I'm going to use this pen. Okay, so I'm going to press, and I can take a peek at my first one just to make sure I'm understanding how much I need to press, and I got a nice little indentation right there. Now again, this is going to be a negative space, so a space that I'm going to cut out. So if I've selected a design that's really complicated, I might want to consider that might be a little too challenging in clay, maybe if it's my first one. But you have to make sure that you don't disconnect anything. So for example right here, this right here is going to be a thin piece of clay. So if I want to hover inside of that a little bit, the thicker it is, the better. It's going to be a little bit stronger. And I'm going to move all the way around and trace my design. So I went off the line right there. It's not really a big deal because I know I'm going to cut that part out. This inside piece I'm not going to trace because this would just fall out anyways because it's not connected any place, okay? So I had students in the past who they wanted to do a professional sports logo or something like that on a coffee cup. So this is how they did it, to do a recessed or an imprint of that logo on a coffee mug. But for this demonstration, this is just to show people how to get some negative spaces that are quite uniform in their piece. So I printed it. You don't have to have a printer. You could draw something on paper very neatly, and then you could go tracing your original drawing. That's always encouraged, okay? I would rather that you did something original than of course copy it. And then if I use something in demonstration that's dangerous, like I'm about ready to show you a box cutter, I'm not saying use a box cutter, but if your parents are willing to supervise you, it might make your life a little bit easier. I would like you to cut with a toothpick, okay? So when you have your design all figured out and you're ready to cut it out, what you can do is lift that paper and then you can cut through it with a toothpick. Now the toothpick slides a lot better if you use water. I don't want to go fast. I'm just going to kind of glide it through there and make my cut. So I can cut all the way through and pick that out with a toothpick. That'll work. But then if your parents, and only if your parents will supervise you with something like this, you can do that as well, okay? So I'm lightly going through there. I can feel it touching the paper inside of here. Just lightly going through it. And notice that I'm never cutting towards my opposite hand. I'm going really slow, being really careful until I get this piece freed up. Okay, so when it's free, I'm going to pick it out of there. Okay, so I'm going to move back to my toothpick and I'm going to pick this piece out. Okay, so now that one has a negative space. Okay, now that space is going to allow the candle light to flicker through. It's very important that this piece right here does not become too thin. Okay, if it's thicker, it's better because it's going to be stronger. Okay, so as you're designing this piece, you want to make sure that it makes sense in regard to strength, because if it's floppy, it's going to fall down and then you're going to have to start over. So if you experience that as a sculptor, it's all part of the process. You're not going to be excellent at this at first, okay? I've been doing it for years, and sometimes I cut things apart and then I have to start over. So I'd rather that it came out uniform and looking nice. You could see how flexible that was, so it'd be very easy to tear it off. All right, so for the candle holder project, I'm looking for something like this. Okay, the design is entirely up to you. Just make sure that you are thinking about negative space, and in this case, these negative spaces that are being cut out, they're going to allow the candle light to flicker through it. Okay, so when I'm finished with this, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna let it dry on this hand sanitizer bottle. And if I want to, I can go back and I can fix this up. If you just give me a moment, I'm gonna run and grab a paintbrush real quick and show you how to use that. So should I see any necessary fixing, I can dip into my slip water and I can paint away any small imperfection that I don't like. So if I paint and paint and paint or smooth it with my finger, it's gonna get a lot nicer. These are just little hints and little tips, okay? Clay tools are just what you make them. It could be anything. It could be your finger, it could be a pencil, could be a toothpick. You could be looking at an object in your house and you could be saying to yourself, my goodness, that would work really, really good for cutting clay. So you can have as many negative spaces as you want. Just understand that if there's more of them, then it's going to require a lot of thinking in the drying process, and of course its stability will be weaker if you pull this too soon. Okay, so if this gets really wet, it also risks getting stuck to the bottle and then you'll have a hard time getting it out. So when you're finished with it, what I would suggest is that you stand it upright, and when it's 100% done, you just leave it to dry and then slip this out of there when it's dry. Then you can bring it down to me during the designated glazing days. Okay, so just as a way to document what it does, the clay will turn white like this sculpture here when it's been fired. Okay, so it goes from its raw state to this ceramic state here. But if you would like yours to be glazed, glaze goes on like paint, and it's really like melted glass, so it becomes shiny like this one here. Okay, so I'll put out some colors, and of course we'll follow social distancing rules and guidelines, and you can come down on designated day during March and you can glaze yours and turn them in to be fired for extra credit. Alright guys, hope this is helpful to you.